Hello everyone and welcome to the International Disc Golf Center. I'm your host Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, and I'm joined by Hall of Fame member Jim Palmieri. Jim, PDGA number?
23.
23. Same number as Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Pretty impressive. Thanks for joining us. We're here again at the International Disc Golf Center. What brings you here?
Well, this is my fourth time coming to the Hall of Fame Classic. I enjoy disc golf competition. I have great friends that are here, and I just couldn't miss being with them. It's great time here.
Well, the PDGA National Tour is coming to a close this weekend here at the Hall of Fame Classic, and as you said, a lot of friends, and there's quite a few Hall of Fame members in attendance this weekend. How many exactly?
I did not get that number. Somebody have that number?
In the 20s, I think I heard. I heard that there was approximately 20 Hall of Fame members here.
I think it's the largest gathering of Hall of Fame members in one place at one time since the Hall of Fame started.
Which is awesome. So one immediate question that comes to mind when you're PDGA number 23 is, when did you sign up and how did that sign up process go down?
Well, when Ed Hedrick first started the PDGA, he offered memberships to all the people that were playing the game and said, join up. And I was right there at the time they were doing it. And at the time it was $10, and I looked, no money. I had to run out to my car. And by the time I got back, I was bumped up to 23. Otherwise I might have been in the top 10.
I was just going to say, if you had money in hand, you may have been top 10, you're saying.
Could have been.
So where exactly were you at when that was happening?
I can't remember. Somebody might be able to tell me, then I can say it, but it was in California.
California, okay.
I believe, or was it was somewhere else. It doesn't really matter. It was Ed Hedrick at a tournament, and we were responding.
Well, that's awesome. Now, what are some of the things that you've been involved with disc golf? And we know a lot of our Hall of Fame members obviously have been everything from course ambassadors to inventors to, I see Chuck Kennedy, who I know is very active with the stats. Everybody's had a lot of different roles in their hands-on disc golf. What are some of the things that you've been most involved with?
Well, I'm noted for producing the first big national disc golf tournament. It was a big tournament that gave away a car for first prize, and it was back before there was the sport of disc golf. And it was sort of a turning point in disc sports. I mean, disc sports were just coalescing. This was back in 1974. And the fact that I gave away a car caused notice. And people like Dan Roddick, who you're going to be talking to, and from all around the country, we have 57 people come thinking, wow, I can win that car, because they're the best in the country, best in their area, their local area. And they figured, nobody could beat me, I can win that car. And everybody who came to the tournament felt that they were the best in their own little local group. But it turns out that only one of them was the best, of course, and you're going to be talking to him soon. Okay,
well, and that was going to be my follow-up. Sometimes we see cars are given away for hole-in-one contest where you have to do something spectacular or unique or original. You're saying just the winner, not just the winner, but the winner in this case was going home with the car, whoever that one person was going to be.
Yeah, the winner of the tournament was going to win the car.
So going back all the way to then to where we are now, what are some of the things that have maybe surprised you throughout all of these years? And it could be good or bad. I mean, we're still not giving away cars exactly every weekend. We do it occasionally. There's been a few, and there's going to be two this year that I can think of. One in a hole-in-one contest, and one with an amateur tour taking place. But what are some of the things that maybe have surprised you throughout the years?
Well, the biggest surprise is the rapidity of which the sport caught on and grew. And there's, of course, a large number of factors for that. But it has grown very fast. That particular first big tournament, the Saturday evening at a tournament little banquet, a group of us talked about the future. You know, we mused about, hey, maybe this will grow and be something like the PGA of ball golf, and maybe we'll have big tournaments and touring pros and stuff like that. We were just musing about it, had no clue as what the future was going to bring. But we did talk about it then, and we thought it might happen. I thought it might happen someday. I didn't know whether I was going to be around to see it, but man, it happened. It grew. It's something about the game really caught on, and it's just exploding.
Is it fair to say watching the flight of the disc, is that one of the things that keeps you or draws you to disc golf, or is there something else to it?
That's a major part of it. I mean, the flight of a Frisbee, which it was back then, was kind of unique and neat amongst other sporting good objects because of the floating and the slowness of it and the fact that you can make it curve. And flying it well was a challenge, and people wanted to be good at it. And that's the essence of the competitions that developed, because people were testing themselves. Who is the best at flying these things?
Well, and it didn't seem to matter whether you were playing catch or you got into ultimate or you were playing to a tree or to a basket. It all came down to the accuracy of how well you were throwing that Frisbee.
Yes, accuracy and how far you could throw it. That was always the two big factors.
Now, a few years ago when I ran into you at one of the World Championships, one of the things that you were talking about quite extensively were baskets and basket configurations, sizes and shapes. Is that something that you've always kind of had a passion for, or something that you thought would help change the game in one way or another?
Oh, big passion for it, and I'm very involved in it, and you wouldn't want to get started on that with me. These guys.
I see some nodding heads in the.
They're cringing that you asked that question. We've just been discussing that for hours.
Okay. So we're gonna leave it there. We are gonna talk to a number of other Hall of Famers. What are some of the things that, when you think about your friendships, and I commonly use the term Frisbee family, because no matter what discipline of Frisbee or disc that it is, we all kind of have that kinship together. What are some of what would you say is one of the best memories that you've taken away throughout all these years?
Oh my God, there's so many of them. To categorize, to take the time for me to think of that, you want to go there.
How about your most favorite competitive moment?
Oh God.
Someone you beat, or maybe other fellow players here.
The 1980 World Frisbee Championship disc golf event. I had a competitor that I just could not fathom losing to. I needed to beat him in the worst way. And we went head and tail all the way down, and we got 2 holes to go, and I'm 2 strokes down, and I said, oh my God, I gotta beat him. And something came to me, something came into my mind saying, Jim, you're gonna beat them, you're gonna win. And that very hole, he got a bogey, I got a birdie, we're all even. We come to the last hole, and he has been putting bad. That's why I was up with him, he's been putting bad. And I got up a fairly decent putt, and he shanked it. He was a long way away. He wasn't making nothing, and all day long. And even if he made that putt, or I make my putt, I still would win. Well, he made the putt. I said, oh, geez. So now I got to make my putt. And I didn't. So we tied. I said, oh, God, we're tied. Got to go to sudden death. We went to sudden death, and it was a tricky hole off of a balcony at the University of California, Irvine. And it was short, but tricky, and you had to get it over, and I landed right by the basket. So I got a deuce. He shanked it way down into the gully. And I said, oh, God. I knew I was going to win.
You've been here before.
But he threw from there. That thing came so close to going in. But it didn't. It missed. I was the winner. I beat John Pickerel. And oh my God, I was so happy. And I don't have the time to tell you why it was so important, but it was important.
Okay.
And I did win that. I did win that disc golf thing. So I was the world champion, Masters division at that time. It wasn't the PDGA because it hadn't started yet, but it was a World Frisbee Championship disc golf event.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, there was I don't know if it was an uproar or a groan in the crowd, but everybody seemed to be pretty excited about the outcome of your story there. Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy your time here for the rest of the weekend. Last question is going to be, how are you going to attack the next 2 days of golf out here? I'm
going to go out and do exactly the same thing I did today, is have fun. Man, it was fun. I was playing with the greatest little group of disc golfers. It was just great, and that's why I came down here, because I knew it was going to be fun.
Awesome.
You're right, Frisbee family, great friends. I mean, how can you miss?
Okay, well, there's some stories, there's some background from PDGA number 23, Jim Palmieri. Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you for having me.
And have a great weekend out there and have some fun, all right? If you can manage to do that.
I can.
Thank you. We're going to cut that. All right, there we go. Now, the real question is, how do we follow that up? We've got a number of other people here.
We've got great guys.
We've got a lot of people in the crowd. Do I see Stork? Is he being forced to come on up here? Stork, Roddick, Dan. And we're going to get Dan up here, and we'll be able to catch up with him. Meanwhile, in the meantime, if you guys could, go out and share the link. Let everyone know that you're out here watching some disc golf. We're taking the action tomorrow. We're going to be doing something similar. There's going to be a Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I'm going to give you those, sir. There'll be a Hall of Fame induction ceremony taking place, and then we'll also have more time to catch up with more of our Hall of Famers, whether it's some of our new class this year. We're, of course, inviting John Bird, Des Redding, and Brian Graham are all going to be joining the Hall of Fame here in 2017. I'm going to go ahead and, can we put it on there? Oh, I'm new at this, sorry. There you go. All right, and now joining us, PDGA number, I always say 003, Dan Stork, Roddick. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How are you doing tonight?
Just great. I mean, this is as good as you get. If you're not happy now, you're never going to be happy.
Well, this, one of the places that, one of the times that I have such a fond memory is coming here during the opening here of the International Disc Golf Center. That was about 10 or 11 years ago. Brian Graham, of course, helping head that up, and the PDGA moving from Canada down here into Appling, Georgia. And then every time I've been here, almost every time I've been here since, whether it was for a committee, a PDGA committee meeting or whatever it might be, I see you. And you're always providing so much insight into the game. Tell us how you got started and some of the things you've seen. And I know there could be a very long storied history there, but give us a few of the highlights that you can think of.
Wow, my dad gave me a Pipco flying saucer for my fifth Christmas. So 1948 plus 5.
Give or take care of the one.
Early 50s.
Okay.
Early 50s, and then we started playing. So that was the beginning. I mean, really, really early, and then we moved on. You know, we upgraded to flying saucers. He was an astronomer. He's still doing well. 96.
Okay. Wow.
96. And then we started pretty consistently playing space games in the backyard, where we would throw our spaceships to the mothership and see who got closer, and then land on the mothership. And I really wish I could tell you that we looked at each other and said, "Oh, we're playing Frisbee golf," but we didn't. We're playing spaceships.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's so enriched my life and the life of the people that I've come in contact with. I said a few months back, I was in New Jersey at their Hall of Fame celebration, and I said, you know, I mean, without this, I said, well, there was like maybe 50, 60 people there, I said, just think about your life if this piece of plastic wasn't in it. Think of the people that you wouldn't have met and the places you wouldn't have been, and all these relationships that we've had. So in terms of summing it up, I mean, as you know, I was lucky enough to be in pretty much every field of endeavor in disc sports, from ultimate to freestyle to overall to whatever. And I mean, I can't conceive of what my life would have been like. I mean, I guess it would have been like a professional pickleball player, because I'm pretty good at pickleball, but not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you know, I don't know. They've overlooked me.
Not yet.
I don't think that's coming down the pike.
Life goals, as they say. Knowing that you bring so much knowledge from all of the Frisbee family and all of the Frisbee sports, how do you help shape and mold where disc golf is going? Because you're always providing insights. You're always, I feel like, taking from other sports, other organizations, and helping shape and mold where the PDGA is heading. What are some of those influences that you're constantly bringing in and providing for us?
I think it's really a matter of us trying to look ahead and anticipate things. And one of our challenges, ironically, is that the sport is so good. I mean, it's so good that it can lull us into a sense of satisfaction that, well, it's going great. I mean, look, we're getting new members bigger, because we're driving a Ferrari. I mean, it's just so good that may keep us from optimizing because we're doing so well. And it's tough to look ahead and anticipate, and we can do some of that by looking at analogies. Our cousins in Ultimate, for example, really help us because they're in a similar setting and they've done a lot of really productive things. And so we can look over to them, and we have a lot of collaboration with them, but to see some of the things they're doing, like their training for coaches, their junior programs, their association with global organizations, and all those things are helpful. Looking at other sports, I'm always in the business of trying to think, okay, how can bass fishing be so big? I mean, what's going on there? You know, what's the key to that? What is it people like about it? And what are the barriers to people coming in to our sport? And I mentioned pickleball. I'm kind of new at it. I mean, I've gotten interested in it recently, and I've had a kind of an epiphany because I realize I'm nervous to go to the place in town where the good people play. And I think, wow, you know, those guys probably know all the rules and stuff, you know, and maybe we'll go and like spy on them and see if you know, how good they are. And that must be how people also feel about disc golf. And they played a little, they make up their own rules, they have a few discs, but then we say, well, why don't you come over to the Wintertime Open? You know, it'd be fun. And they're going, oh man, I don't know, that sounds pretty serious. So the more we can think about ways to lower that barrier, not only for open players, but in particular, we're underrepresented, you know, in players of color, of women, of children. I mean, all of those things to figure out how can we legitimately make them feel welcomed to come and play, because we've got something fantastic to share. We know it. And the world needs this kind of game. I mean, there is a real problem with our, well, let's say all of us. I mean, but I was going to say the younger generation, but the way young people typically spend their time now versus the way you and I spend our time as a kid. That digital device that has come to dominate their time, that can't be good long term. I mean, we need experiences like disc golf provides, and I think we have an obligation to break through that barrier and get them out there with us having legitimate physical, social fun, and that's what we've got.
Well, and I think you've touched on something that is become very true to us, that maybe we've become in the media part of this, we'll say, solution and or problem. You just said, we talk about people watching on their devices, but I'll tie that into being scared. If you did want to learn more about pickleball, you'd probably now, you could go out to YouTube. You could go out there and find, okay, what are some of the rules? What are some of the basics? I know when I got introduced to racquetball, that's the first thing I did, is I said, I'm going to go to YouTube and watch where I can get some of the basics there. And then just like you said, I was like, oh man, look at all those rules. And now I'm nervous to actually go, you know, to enter one of these tournaments and start that whole process over. But everyone's able to watch it and consume it that way. Hopefully they're getting out and splitting that time between watching it online and coming out and trying it for themselves. But one thing that we've seen annually, our membership here at the PDGA continues to grow, whether it's 12% or 15% or 17%. But you touched on something, we only have about 5 to 7% being women. And I've said for many years, we've been around for about 40 years trying to get more women to playing. What is it going to take Because clearly us guys that are part of it don't seem to find the solution. What is it going to take for us to get more women playing the sport? And I know that's a pretty big question, but do you have any ideas there? Is it other women that are going to have to get more women to play?
I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it. I think we need to have more women in our conversations and in our decision-making groups, because lots of times we just don't get it, and there are features that will be attractive to women that don't necessarily occur to a typical man decision maker, that involve, facilities are there, childcare, a chance to come without full-on competition, that feature the camaraderie and the opportunity to play. Because especially with Title IX, producing a lot of female athletes who come out of academic programs and then really are kind of dropped flat. That is, when they get out of college or high school, I mean, they played pretty seriously, and now they're looking around and go, well, what's for me now? And we should fill that void. I mean, there are a number of really interesting opportunities for us, including that. I mean, I think the system is producing a bunch of very promising female athletes coming out of Title IX programs who are looking for something interesting to do, and I think Ultimate and disc golf should be there for them, and we should make it as easy as possible for them to see that they can use their athletic talents and come into it. And I also think that there are a couple of other things that are changes unrelated to us, but the decline in the popularity of ball golf in terms of their playing census, that's an opportunity for us. And sidebar, even though this isn't an Ultimate show, the concussive issue in football, that's an opportunity. I mean, who's ready to send their kid to midget football right now? I mean, it's just, the bad news is so strong. And Youth Ultimate, disc golf, I mean, we're there, baby.
Right there and ready,
I think this
with open arms.
Exactly. I think it's a tremendous time to be in our end of the table.
So a few moments ago when we opened the show, I had Jim join us, PDGA number 23. Your PDGA number 3. Steady Ed is number 1. How did that happen, where obviously Steady being number 1, where were you and what was that time and place like for you to be PDGA number 3?
Well, I had the $10.
Yeah,
okay, that's part of it, but Victor Malafronte is number 2. And I don't remember the sequence of how he got in front of me in line, but I think maybe he had $20, and so he got 2. And now there are people, incidentally, I don't know if you've ever run into them, but everybody's got a story about how they could have had a better number.
Yes.
That's the thing. They see me, they say, oh, I could have been such and such. There's people who ended up with, say, number 100. And they'll say to you, oh man, I could have been like 1.5. But I said 100 would be cool. What was I thinking? And so I don't know if that person's still alive, but if they were, that would be something that probably we shouldn't say on your show.
I have one of those stories as well, and I'm not too mad. I feel like almost as soon as I learned about disc golf in the PDGA, I very quickly jumped on board. But even to this day, I'm 10738, but I always say, I would love to have been a 4-digit member as opposed to a 5-digit member, and so close.
It's a different classic person.
Yeah, all the way down. Wait. This weekend, very special weekend, the Hall of Fame Classic taking place, again, the National Tour event. But I think we're going to see this as a reoccurring reunion of sorts, hopefully more and more year after year. What makes this weekend so special with all these people?
Well, one of the things I think that makes this particular weekend special, in addition to the fact that it's our first time to to have the Hall of Fame induction and the Hall of Fame Classic together here at our Valhalla, is that we just registered our 100th member of PDGA.
100,000. Yep.
What did I say?
100th, but I know what you meant. 100,000th, which is.
Can you?
Let me see if I can rewind. We're already.
Oh, okay. Anyway, it's that 7-second delay. I thought might save us. 100,000. One of the things that we're going to try to do is bridge the generations, and so I'm going to be reaching out to member 100,003. And say, hey, dude, like, let's talk, and kind of adopt each other a little bit.
That's awesome.
And then we hope that a lot of people do that. And I've got a feeling that DGA might be interested in talking to 100,001 and on up. And when you see your number come up, check out that new person and say, hey, great to have you aboard. And I think
I love that idea. I guess I don't know if it's quite the analogy, but I think of like the sister cities when you come into a city and then there's another one usually on the other side of the world. I think of it in that way, and I think that's really unique. That is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, I think it'd be fun and a chance to, as I say, bridge the generations really. So, and I think we're up to over 700 at this point. So we're almost to triple digit people.
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
So the last question for you will be, and I know you're incredibly busy, and we have the PDGA Summit coming up in a few days. Can you give us an overview of anything in particular that you're working on, whether it's a project or a very specific development, anything that you're working on that you can share with everyone right now?
Yeah, but first, I'm not that busy. Okay. I could stay here a long time. I'm semi-retired. I quit working. I just haven't told my boss.
Oh, okay.
What am I working on? Oh, the question. Sustainability. Again, looking to the future and saying, where are we going? What are we doing? How are we getting there? And one of the things that I think we need to be thinking about more than we have in the past is we need our own spaces to play. I mean, I think no matter how you see the future mapping out, that's part of it. And we're getting to the point of our financial maturity and with this decline in golf popularity, I mean, I think courses are going to be becoming available. There's property available. I think we need to increasingly be thinking, how can PDGA and the sport in general support those entrepreneurial efforts to create our own spaces? Because the fact of the matter is we don't play that well with others. I mean, there's a lot of course settings for tournaments or long time events where we're trying to play with picnickers and that sort of thing, and that just can't be our future. I mean, our future is going to be playing on our own spaces just like ball golf. And I hope we can be proactive about that. I mean, obviously it's been done over the years, but I'd like to see us press more in that regard and maybe put a little less effort into trying to convince an already kind of crowded public space that we can fit in there. I'd rather spend our time on something like this, where I didn't see any conflict problems out there today. No. I mean, it's just us, and I think this is our future, and I hope we can pave our way toward that a lot more effectively than we've been able to so far.
And to clarify, to maybe take that one step further, you don't necessarily mean that it needs to be privatized or on private land. You're just looking for, which could be a solution, but I think, are you just looking that we have more space that's dedicated to disc golf, whether that's private or public land?
Single use.
Single use is what you're saying.
I played a course in Northern California, my friend Doug Corns and Jeff took me out to, that was a retired park that they couldn't support, and they dedicated it to disc golf. And you pull into the park and the sign says, this park is for disc golf only. Don't be picnicking here.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay.
Nice.
That's what I like to see.
That's what we need. Awesome. All right. Well, there was one question on the board. I'm going to entertain a question that came in. Someone wanted me to ask, what is your background? What is your professional background?
Professional.
All right. Well, the people that wrote you a check, what kind of organization was that?
I get a little bit of money every time I mention pickleball.
Okay. Clearly, good.
Pickleball.
I need to get on board with that.
It's for people, small net. No, I was in the toy industry, sports promotion for everybody who made Frisbee for years, from 75 to 2000, from Wham-O to Kransco to Mattel. And what I thought I was preparing to do was to be a college professor like my dad. And so I still do that. I teach online. I'm a sociologist. I've got 100 kids taking a midterm right now. And that was a joke about the semi-retired thing. Rebecca,
Yep.
head of the department. So yeah, that's what I do for money, basically.
Okay. All right. Any parting shots that you'd like to share with the world?
That I feel like I'm on with Jimmy Fallon. I mean, you've become such a star, and I rarely miss a show. And I want to thank you for how you've gotten us out there, and it's fun to get a chance to talk with you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Terry.
All right. That is PDJ 003 Dan Stork Roddick. We're going to help him remove everything. I'll just grab that. And thank you so much for joining us. All right.
Pickleball.
Again, pickleball. One more time. All right. Now, who is coming up next? Who do we have? Snap, come on up. We'll see if we can get you all dialed in here. All right. If you don't mind, we'll have you throw those on, then you'll be able to hear me. Come on in a little closer. I'm not too dangerous usually. You throw those on, please.
Told me about you, so.
And I'm going to put that right there, which should hopefully work just fine. All right. Snap Conger, please introduce you. We've never really had a full-blown conversation. I think we've seen each other throughout the years.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I don't know your PDGA number.
Well, that's okay.
What is it?
60.
60. Okay, so let's start there.
Okay.
Where did you sign up? Was it a party? Was it an actual tournament? Where were you when you got your PDGA membership?
I think I was in Austin, Texas at the time, and Ed was coming through. And to borrow a story from Stork, yeah, I could have had it lower.
Yeah.
I didn't have the money. I did not have $10.
Okay.
And I just said, I'll send it to you, or here's an IOU. Ed wouldn't take IOUs. He's a businessman.
Yes, he is.
So I sent it in like 3 months later and got 60 out of it.
Okay. Now,
I could have gotten lower.
10, 12 maybe.
No, I have any idea.
Could have been much lower.
It was a great gig.
So tell us a little bit about the disc golf scene where you're from. You said you signed up in Texas, but you're out in California, are you not?
Well, no, I'm from California originally, but I'm on the East Coast now.
Okay, so tell us about when you got involved with disc sports. What was the scene like, and what were some of the things you were doing or playing? And was it just disc golf, or were there other Frisbee activities?
I think when the World Frisbee Championships were real hot and heavy, somebody told me about this tournament in Florence, Alabama. So I went down to Florence, Alabama, and that's when I first met Stork and got turned on to the competition of Frisbee. And of course Monroe was there, Westerfield was there, and I saw some things I liked, and I just stayed with it and somehow got a ticket. It was Jimmy Scala's ticket, a plane ticket actually, to the World Championships in 1976. Joe Cowhow sent it to me. She called me up and said, somebody dropped out, you're going to go, and it was Jimmy Scala. And he's a New Jersey guy now. Well, he was a New Jersey guy, and I think he lives in Virginia now. But because he dropped out, I dropped in. And I've stayed in all this time. It's been great.
I think all of us at one time or another, now yours obviously very early, all of us have a a tournament sold out / waiting list story. About, you know, you got to a tournament and it was sold out and you weren't expecting it, or you didn't get into one of your favorite tournaments because it sold out too quickly. So it sounds like that's a memorable story for you to get into an event. Now, what did you find most enjoyable, or what do you still find most enjoyable? Competition, course design, or any other form of development within our sport? What are some of the things that stick out for you?
Well, I've kind of been in every part of that, but I just like the competition. I need this, you know, the speed thing. I love the competition. But Stork and both Jimmy did talk about the family, and our wives know each other. We travel together. We'll go to Europe for competitions. We're very blessed to be able to do that kind of stuff. But it's the whole thing of just kind of an overused, but it's Frisbee family. It really is, and I'm not sure what I would be doing outside of this for competition, but the Frisbee thing is really, and I'm an overall player. I'm not just disc golf, so I really like the overall scene, and that's very important to me. What
are your favorite other disciplines within Frisbee that you like when you're talking about overalls?
Oh, distance and the field events.
Okay.
Freestyle, I'm a very minor player in freestyle, but mainly the distance, field events, MTA, TRC, and you know, I'm still cranking out world records. So that's a great personal feeling.
And then I know I was introduced very early on by one of our Hall of Famers, Duster Don Hoffman.
Oh, Duster.
From many years ago in Wisconsin, and when he brought the game of DDC, double disc court, which again to this day so many people have never seen, never heard, never played, and I think people are missing out by that. Is that a game that you played very competitively, I have to assume?
DDC, yeah, I played DDC, but not at the level like Stork and some of the other California, and even on the East Coast, it's very big. DDC is very big, and yeah, I like it. It's just that I wish I had time to play more. I'm very busy nowadays still, and so I just can't get to all the tournaments I want to get to.
Well, Bill Newman is on the board, and he actually has said that you have a great professional story. So maybe does that tie in with you being busy all the time in terms of your profession as well, or no?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm a retired Navy captain for one thing. That kept me busy all over the world for one time, and I've been very lucky to be on several launch teams for NASA rockets, and that takes me a lot of places. And I've just got back from Kwajalein in the South Pacific. Southern North Pacific, actually, and I'll be going back there one more time in March and April, and then I'm going to retire. I'm going to just cut it loose and let the young puppies play.
Are you going to let them know, or like Stork, are you just going to quit working?
No,
you'll let them know.
No, they already know that my cutoff date's June 1st.
Okay, and then I have to ask, how will discs and frisbees, how will they consume your time when you're able to give even more time to those types of sports?
Well, I'm going to be moving west a little bit, so I've already embraced that community out there. I just got back from a tournament and did pretty good, so they've got some good organization where I'm going to be.
And when you say west, where like California west, or just west of Virginia where you are?
Kaneohe, which is on the other side of Diamond Head.
Okay.
In Oahu.
Okay.
So that'll be a lot, but I will be coming back to some California tournaments. Stork, some overalls, so that'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun.
How many of and I didn't ask any of our previous guests, but how many of the world championships have you attended in playing all these years?
Wow. My first one was 76, and I went all through the Rose Bowls. I've been to a bunch of the PDGAs, never won a world title except for into some doubles, but I've always had a lot of fun, and that's why that's another reason why I just keep on going. And the people, just it's been a great people thing. There's so many people out in the whole world that are missing something. Believe me, really missing it.
Now, just last year, for the first time, we saw the World Championships actually split up. I hate to use the term divide, but they split up, and we see the MPO and the FPO divisions as one separate week versus the age-protected divisions. Do you see that as still the great time to get together and kind of a reunion, and does it really matter which divisions are or aren't there on any given week?
Oh, I always like to be with the Open and see the youngsters come up through everything. I've got a lot of friends in the Open still, and I was kind of bummed out a little bit, but it's so hard to run a tournament, and that's I understand the numbers thing that PDGA had to do, and but we're going to make this annual thing a lot of fun too, so I think it'll be fine. Yeah,
and to take that one step further, because of the people, the numbers, as you said, there's actually a separate juniors tournament versus AM Worlds versus MPO and FPO, and then Masters Worlds. At one point, those were all 1 week, so to speak, and now we see them having to take place over 4 different weeks just because of the sheer growth of our sport, which is also very impressive to talk about there. What do you see in terms of the growth and where we're going with disc golf and seeing from a very early stage? What are some of the things that excite you as we move forward here in the sport of disc golf?
I believe that it's just all the young people coming in, and we are taking over a lot of parks, like Stork said, that aren't being utilized, and we're helping populate those unused parks. And actually, we have partnerships with a lot of parks and recreation all over the country, and I see the growth in Europe is just phenomenal. But I think the one big thing is now that the Disc Golf Hall of Fame has a home here, and we have a tournament home, and I think that excites me a lot. So I thank Every Joe and everybody else, and Brian Graham before him, that we're growing, but we're managing that growth, I think, pretty good.
Now, this year, I think I overheard someone say, and I think she also just walked in, but one of our new members, your new members of the Hall of Fame in Des Redding, I believe the first 5-digit PDGA membership, is there a confirmation? I know she's 5 digits, she's just a few after mine. I think she's in the 15,000s. Can anyone confirm?
I don't know.
Or deny that? I believe she's
think
the
that
first.
Is.
If Des is the first 5-digit Hall of Fame member. I'm just blowing minds here, folks.
She's talking about it. Yeah, she's going to give
right,
the thumbs up.
Okay, okay. So we talked about the growth, Stork and I did, I know, talking about the 100,000 memberships. When you signed up, as you said, you wish you would have been a little bit earlier. You were at 60. What does that mean to you in terms of just eclipsing that milestone of 100,000 members?
I just find it amazing when I found that out. So I've been kind of out of the loop for the last couple of months, and when I found that out, I just thought that was super. And now here it's 100,787 or something like that. That's like crazy. Crazy good.
It is. So now that you'll have a little bit more time, you said once you get retired in June, is there a course? Is there a place you want to go? Has there been a destination where you've thought, all right, now I have some time I can dedicate to go playing in either that area or a specific course or tournament perhaps?
Yeah, I'm going to rediscover the South Pacific and go back to Japan and do Australia and New Zealand. We've got golf courses in all those places, and I want to party with those golfers down there.
You mean by party, you mean play tournaments with them?
Party and play tournaments.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm a disc golfer too. So,
Exactly. And now that you've traveled down here this week, are you making a whole week of it or weekend, or what does your time frame look like when you're down here with the rest of this motley crew?
My wait list story is today. I was on the wait list for this.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure I was going to be here. I just kind of squeezed the weekend in. So I was very lucky. I'm just here to play golf, and I played really bad today, but I still had fun.
All right.
But I just played steady ed for the first time in a long time, so I'm going to be fine.
I was just going to say, I was about to go out and check out where the scores are. Give us a rundown how things went for you out on the course today.
It was terrible. I couldn't. I hit every tree. I hit off the tee, and you can. I mean, Chuck was there. He could tell you. Hit every tree.
He's got them all mapped
I missed
out.
putts between here and Jimmy several times, and even the camera. It was, and I just won a tournament in Hawaii. So that's what makes me feel so weird about it.
The likes of Alan Beaver and Dr. Rick Vokes, and then Chuck Kennedy, who you just mentioned as well. What's the plan for tomorrow? I'm
going to win my milkshake back from Jim Palmieri.
Wait a minute, a milkshake? Tell us about this.
It's kind of an ongoing thing that when we do a bet, it's usually a milkshake.
Okay.
And I think Jimmy probably owes me a few, so he got one back today.
Jimmy's nodding. He says he owes you a lot of them. You
well, not that
many. Any parting shots? Anything you'd like to say to everyone out there?
No, I just want to say thanks for hosting us, and you are a rock star for us. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
And that communications like this really gets out. Really does get out.
Awesome.
And I appreciate that.
Well, very much. All right, again, that's PDGA number 60. Look at that, 60. I love it. Michael Snapconger, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night. Well, I'm going to grab that from you. So I'll grab those from you. And I'm not sure who we can have next. Waiting in the not so green room.
The executive director said coordinating the lineup here.
We're going to have joining us, scoot on in just a little bit more, and I'm going to put this on you, and hopefully that should be good for everybody.
There we go.
And joining me now is, I'm going to refer to you as Mr. Ratings, but Chuck Kennedy. Chuck, welcome, and fellow Midwesterner.
Yes, sir.
Someone I know very well, because I've seen you quite a few times throughout the years, and you're still active on message boards, Chuck, aren't you?
I try to do the best foot forward for the PDGA.
Let me just adjust this. Sorry, that's my fault. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So best foot forward for the PDGA out there, answering questions, many which are ratings related, of course.
And one of the things that we've said for years now is I think if anyone just says or types your name 3 times, you're like Beetlejuice. You just show up and then you answer the question that is out there for somebody.
It's the Chuck signal, like the bat signal, I think,
Exactly. So I know a lot of people, myself included, maybe unfairly always say, well, Chuck is the ratings, but tell us a little bit about how the ratings came about, and you have a partner in crime with that, don't
Absolutely.
you?
And he's actually going to be down here with his girlfriend this weekend.
Okay.
He's doing some sightseeing. Roger Smith is in a suburb called Lamont, outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And actually, the PDGA got me connected with Roger when I had this idea for doing the rating system. Roger had already, and a fellow named Rob Hauer from Michigan had been on the statistics committee, which I wasn't on, but Jim Chalice was the commissioner at the time, and he'd always wanted a handicap system. And I sort of felt that people would really like to play in fair competition, but straight up. In other words, get various divisions of equivalent skill people and then compete head-to-head against them, as opposed to doing the handicap adjusting score. So that was kind of my take on it. And Jim Chalice passed some documents on to me from the stats committee, and I sort of got this idea, hey, we could maybe do this going back and forth where players with ratings created the ratings for more players in the courses. Interestingly enough, my interest was not so much in player ratings, but I think a lot of people don't realize how many courses that I was building back in the 90s, and my interest was actually in course ratings and getting the different skill levels so that we could design tees and the courses for the particular skill level, as opposed to having player ratings, having some meaning. The other thing at that time, and I'm sure you're aware of this, was there were no ways of adjusting, like what division should somebody play. There was a lot of sandbagging going on all over, and especially across the country. An AM1 was maybe really good in, say, North Carolina, and an AM1 down in New Mexico.
Sure.
And so this helped normalize, the skill levels nationally by working on developing this rating system.
So one of the things that you just told me I actually did not know, which was that I thought you were, I don't know where I thought this, I thought you were lifelong friends with Roger. Someone that you had known before, or maybe someone that you had already, partnered up with in terms of golfing.
Nope.
So Roger, he's been a very special person to be working with you so closely all of these years.
Yep.
to tie everything together, because you guys are constantly
and it's
in
all verbal.
communication.
It's all verbal. Each of us has an independent contract with the PDGA that includes doing the ratings. And really, Roger's the computer power behind the scenes. He is a systems analyst for the City of Chicago water system. So he has a, an important computer job and has had that for quite a while. And he's the one that really built the back-end database and does all the number crunching. I was the one that sort of helped create the formulas from the beginning, but then he actually took those and made it so that it could be actually productive, in terms of being able to process ratings and update and all that. He gets the lion's share of the credit for, that aspect and being able to keep up. And, we haven't missed a deadline, since the beginning in terms of when we said we were going to have ratings updated as a contractor to the PDGA. People don't realize I'm not an employee of the PDGA, nor is Roger. We're just independent contractors that do the ratings processing for the PDGA.
Well, we won't talk about the once I think I missed a deadline submitting my PDGA report as a tournament.
Oh, well, the TDs are all over the map.
Yeah.
But Roger and I try to save your butt.
So, of course, the ratings have been something that's been very close and near and dear to both of you. But you also touched on it a moment ago. You have a very deep history in course design, course development,
Absolutely.
standards, protocols, procedures, all of those types of things. And then another component that you've been pretty active with throughout the years has been our rules and some of our standards in that sense. But let's talk about the course design.
Sure.
A lot of times when people, at least from our neck of the woods, and we're in the Midwest, a lot of people, when you talk about course designers, names frequently come up are Chuck Kennedy, John Houck comes up, Duster Don Hoffman, again specifically in our area. But those are some of the names that immediately come up when you talk about course design. What is it about design that you love so much? And you have you have some very special skill sets for going out into a completely wooded 40 or 60 acres to make it happen. But what are some of those skill sets that you've honed and developed throughout the years? And what about it do you love so much?
The sport that I did prior to disc golf, which I got into in '89,
Don't say pickleball. Don't say
orienteering.
Okay, that makes sense.
Orienteering was with running through the woods with a map and a compass.
Okay.
So being familiar with terrain and reading terrain maps, and of course at that point we didn't have Google Earth or anything. We were looking at blueprints, and the county commissioner would have their maps, for the different courses or parks, just even the parks and the property. So when we were doing early design, we were putting clear acetate over the printouts and using grease pencil, to do our layouts. So
that's old school, I think they say.
That's very old school, but it worked. I played chess in high school and I played blindfold chess. And so I was able to actually walk around the chessboard, and I think having that sort of 3D visualization has always helped me out as it relates to walking through a property and sort of getting an idea where everything is, where I could actually be processing ideas when I wasn't physically walking on the property, and then go check it out to see if I remembered it correctly.
Well, and I think about times where you've maybe walked through a piece of land that I've walked through, or that we both had some encounter with, and I feel like you could say, oh yeah, that one tree, 300 steps in to the left that was next to this other tree, and I was just lucky to find my way out of the place, let alone, but you were discussing actual specific spots. The course that was played today here at the Hall of Fame Classic on the MPO and FPO side is the Steady Ed Hedrick Memorial Course,
right?
Which was that entirely your design, or was there any collaboration?
No, Tom Monroe. It was a co-design.
Okay.
I think we sort of worked real well. I was sort of do the initial draft, and then he was the editor and tweaker. And I think that is the best way for maybe two people to work it out, is to have that type of counterpoint sounding board and whatever. And it was great. I mean, and Tom had more experience doing wooded courses than I did, even though Upper Midwest is more 50-50 in terms of a lot of the properties that we design up there.
So how many courses, and some people who, again, you're not in our area necessarily, or their area, how many courses have you worked on in some capacity? Because I know you've consulted on Worlds courses,
Right.
on Final
Yep.
Nines, and various Worlds layouts. But how many courses overall would you say you've consulted on?
Probably in a neighborhood of 120, of which maybe 50, 60 were I was the lead designer, and another 30, 40 where I was a major contributor in some fashion or whatever. And then as an advisor for the PDGA, I've been involved in about 35 Worlds, amateur and pro, as a player, scorekeeper, course evaluator, all those different types of tasks, depending on what was needed at the time for the PDGA.
Yeah, and I know for many years you were kind of the lead score
Yes.
headquarters, scoring
Yep.
headquarters for a lot of our world championships, and we've seen that that role kind of expand and pass on to a few other people.
Yeah.
But you've definitely been very active in that.
In fact, this is sort of old home week in a way, because I got inducted in 2006 during the Pro Worlds here in Augusta, and I almost didn't make the ceremony because I was getting the final scoring done that night for the rounds and getting the stuff posted for the next day, and then I shot down to the hotel to, getting ready to get up and do my little spiel. So
Now, I've talked to a lot of all of our previous members. What's your PDGA number, and where were you, and how did it unfold that you acquired it?
well, relative to a lot of these guys, I'm a piker with a 4-digit number, but maybe it counts as 2 digits since it's 4949. How to work with numbers, right?
You have a special way of that.
There we go, huh? Mr. Digits.
So 4949, where was it in order to be eligible for a tournament, or where did that come about?
Interestingly enough, it was another Hall of Famer that paid my membership. Surprised me. Jumpin' Joe Fight.
Oh, okay. Also
Now-
from Minnesota,
Yep.
Wisconsin border area.
I started in '89, and he was the editor of the Disc Golfer newsletter at the time. And since I was getting involved with courses right away, I was looking at the PDGA course directory, which Steve Hartwell out in Massachusetts produced at the time. And I put together a map that showed the density of courses all over the United States, which he used as a graphic in the Disc Golfer. And that was my payment was he paid for my PDGA membership at that point. And so 4949 was probably either late '89, early 1990, somewhere in there.
Okay. Huh. And where do you see this going next? What are some of the projects? I know you're also very active. You're very busy with things going on, and whether that's course design or some other statistics. But what are some of the other big projects or things that you're working on that we should know about?
Well, the one thing that I'd like to just point out that's impressive to me and should be to everybody else, the people that had numbers that are in the 2 digits and the 3 digits that are here and that you'll be talking to also, they're still banging. I mean, they're still involved, contributing in the sport. It's not like they became into the Hall of Fame and sort of, sat on their laurels and whatever. And I think that's, a tribute to the types of people that got inducted into the Hall of Fame before me. And we're still seeing them here playing, and they're still doing things in their local markets. And so I think that's just a little side note.
No,
I
agree. It's great.
As far as projects, we've sort of been working in the Skunk Works with the game development team on some of the ideas that can maybe improve the game in terms of course design elements. Some of those are creeping into the rules, in terms of things like that. And obviously I've had some impact with regard to working with the TDs on waivers, with regard to making sure that they're not too punitive when they do things. And, Nate's been great, even though, Ledgestone has the reputation. Nate seriously wants to make it fair, even if it is challenging. So, that's, and I might as well suck up since he's on the board now. So.
And your reference to Nate Heinold, who has developed the Ledgestone Insurance Open, which has become one of the richest and biggest tournaments. And there's been some controversy and some questioning back and forth involving Nate and some of the rules. We've seen stroke and distance implemented in various stages at our United States Disc Golf Championships, and then we've seen rules pulled back, and we always have slight adjustments going on. And again, when you're online, there's always that moment of clarity that you can provide. And what I love also about when you're posting is you're really great at playing devil's advocate. You can really massage it into a couple of different ways to think about it. of course, not everyone always agrees with all of
Right.
your angles, but
Right.
the fact that you can present all of those different angles and somebody can think about it more than one way. Somebody even on the board said, don't bring up the foot fault rule.
Oh, well, to tell you the truth, I haven't really been following what actually went in the rule book versus what we were talking about.
Okay.
So I'll have to wait and see when the print is at the printer now, so that's out there. But, you know, and from my days in the past being involved in debate team and that type of thing, it's like you pick the side you want, and then I'll
I can very much see that. For some reason, I feel like that fits you very well. Is there anything you'd like to share with the world that you want to get out there?
No, people have had enough of me. I think we need to get some of the folks here that are in the Hall of Fame that, you know, I think Derek Robbins we ought to have our international member up here next maybe. And
I would be good with that. That would be
Cool.
great. All right. Well, again, this is Chuck Kennedy, PDGA number 4949. Thanks again for joining us.
Sure thing.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Terry.
Let me grab this from you real quickly. All right.
Okay, I'm going to have Dave first.
Dave, Derek, whomever's ready. All right. I think we're going to do Dave and then Derek next. And I'm going to put this right on your shirt like that. I think that should work. If you want to put those on, it'll probably be a little easier to hear me. Let's go that way. Probably you'll hear me. And give us a quick mic check. How we doing? Dave Greenwell, how you doing tonight, sir?
Doing great. How are you, Terry?
Great to see you, my friend. I'm going to stretch it and say PDGA 962? 964?
You were
967?
right the first time.
962.
Yeah.
I was right. Okay. Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Dave, I've known you, like so many of our other members, I've known for quite a few years, and I've run into you frequently at the World Championships, as you've been at every single one of them. And I was fortunate enough to play in quite a few in a row myself, but not nearly as many as you. And we've worked together on some broadcasting efforts, and we've done a lot of things. But tell us about your start, PDGA 962. That's a three-digit, as we like to say. Who introduced you to the game, and then how did your membership come about?
Well, it was actually my girlfriend's fault that my number's not lower.
Okay. It's always somebody's. Because she didn't have $10 to lend you, or what?
No, actually, she just didn't go to the mall soon enough. Because in 1978, there was a nature mobile from Otter Creek Park that was in a local mall. And they were advertising the fact that they had a disc, actually a Frisbee golf course.
Okay. And this is in Kentucky?
This is in Kentucky.
Okay.
And they had a flyer on the nature mobile advertising the Whammo $50,000 invitational. And Otter Creek had the first basket tournament in the state of Kentucky, and it was a qualifier for that event.
Okay.
So in order to play in the event, you had to be a PDGA member. So had she gone shopping a little sooner, then I would have been at least 400 or 500 instead of 962.
Not too often do you hear most men say, oh, if she had only went shopping sooner, it would have benefited me. So you've been playing forever, and you are one of the most winningest, and I hate to guess, I'm going to say you're one of the most winningest players of all time. With how many career wins?
You know,
do I have to click on it? I know they're not even all recorded.
They're not
on the database. I'm going to guess it's over 200 on the database if I looked.
Probably not, actually.
No?
I mean, I guess one of my claims was that I was one of the first to win 100 Open Division wins, which happened around the turn of the millennium.
Okay. Now, one of the most impressive accomplishments with all of those wins that you talked about, 100 Open career wins, some of those were early on, of course, but some of those weren't. How many years did you span that you were still winning in the Open Division, even maybe when you were eligible for other divisions?
It was quite a few. I don't even know for sure. I haven't won an Open Division win since about 2011.
2 weeks ago?
No, about 2011 or something.
Okay. But all the way up until around then, you were still winning in the Open Division.
Right.
What are some of the things that you feel like people miss? And by that question, I think about you being one of the greatest to ever play the game. People talk about Ken Climo, of course, the champ, as one of the greatest. But there's people in this day and age who just found disc golf 2 years ago, 4 years ago, who maybe never even heard of Ken Climo. And that's, of course, no disrespect to Ken, but with the internet and with the branding and the marketing, it's on the Macbeths and the Wysockies of today. So I guess my question to you really is, what can we learn from our past? What are people missing out on as you and Kenny and some of the other early pioneers of the game that were touring and playing? What are some of those, some things you can share from those earlier days?
That's a great question. You know, really, I think the prettiness of the flight of a disc. I mean, in the early days, you had to really know how to work a disc that was understable. So in order to make it go straight, sometimes you had to put a lot of hyzer on it just to keep it from turning over. And today, with all of the rim technology and the overstability of the discs, you see guys throwing sidearm hyzers and backhand hyzers, which are really effective tools, but they just don't have the grace of that glide that the hyzer flip shot has.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of what I think they're missing. I mean, the tools are really good and very effective, and these guys throw it so far. But, you know, I kind of miss that floaty, fluffy, just graceful shot that sits down beside the basket.
I'll further that by saying I feel like we've moved a little bit away from some of the beauty and the art form into the raw power and the speed that goes along with it that we're seeing today. And I totally agree with you. And earlier today when we were talking about people signing up and the disc technologies, I shared with someone that even in the mid-90s when I got involved, the Whippet was one of the fastest discs out there, and the Viper and the Cyclone was revolutionary, you know, in the early 90s, early to mid-90s. And then when you think back to some of the discs that you were throwing prior to that, the Cobras and the Stingrays, and newsflash people, there was at one time only one plastic really. It was what we call D or DX these days. It wasn't
actually. It was called World Class 165 Frisbee,
and
it was about that deep, and it was really slow, and it barely fit into the basket. So DX was revolutionary compared to
exactly.
those.
Yes, I stand corrected. Absolutely. So watching even that develop, and it wasn't until actually, it was near a tournament when I saw you. I ran into you. It was, again, the late 90s. I believe it was 99. I was at a tournament in Kentucky, the Lexington Open, and they had this plastic, which was called Champion Plastic. And I remember saying, $14, you're crazy. I'm not paying $14 for a disc. And there it all sat in boxes, and I didn't bother picking any of it up. And that was, you know, one of those turning points in all of disc golf where we started seeing other plastic types and things come about. So switching gears entirely, you've played for so many years and so active and such a dominant player. You played with, for the most part, Innova as your sponsor and as your backer. And then a few years ago, you along with some other very, very well-known, reputable people within our sport said, hey, let's get together. And was that following a dream to create another company, to start Prodigy?
You know, I mean, it really wasn't something that I thought that I wanted to do. I mean, it wasn't like I dreamt of being an owner of a disc manufacturing company. But one of the last things for me to do in the sport was to be that. And it really, my main goal in that was to make sure that the players got paid. You know, I mean, I played for years and years, and I got some bonuses, and I was appreciative of those. But had I not worked throughout the whole time I was playing, then I would have nothing today. And I was hoping that if we started paying players, whether they won or not, then these players would have something at the end of their playing days. So that was the main reason. You know, I mean, that and the fact that, of course, if you own a manufacturing company, you want to have a really good product.
Of course. And
I think we've done that. So I mean, the competition's tough. It's a whole different world. It's not that la-di-da, let's go play disc golf. You know, I mean, it's a job.
Well, and I'll further that by saying, I think a lot of people can echo that when you talk about whether it's our Hall of Famers or maybe even our touring players or anyone, when you talk about having a job in disc golf, it usually is just that, a job. For the most part, you're putting away the discs or not playing all those casual rounds you used to get to play. And you probably do you play less disc golf now than ever before? And is that due to how busy you are and things that are going on?
Actually, the last couple of years I have played more disc golf.
Wow, okay.
Because prior to Prodigy, I won't say happily, but I was kind of happily retired. And I really wasn't looking for a job. So, the first few years were really, really, really busy. And now I'm getting a chance to play a little bit, plus I'm doing a lot more course design, which really is one of my passions. So. Okay,
I was just going to ask, what are some of the things, as you guys are developing discs, and of course you have that branding and the marketing and everything you do within your role there, but what are some of the passions that keep you involved with the sport? And you mentioned course design. What is it about course design that you love so much?
As much as anything, it's exposing new areas to the sport. I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of the best courses in the world, having played in many different places, and tried to pick out the things that I like the best and incorporate them into my designs. Now, it's one of those things where you can only do with what you have. So, I mean, if you're given a masterpiece, you can paint one, as far as a nice piece of property. But during my course design days, unfortunately, I've ended up in a lot of places that were not great places, and then had to try to create a really nice course in a not so great place to do it. So I'm still waiting for that that masterpiece piece of property to show up, but I think I've actually had a few that were really good with what I had to work with. So. And
earlier we had Stork on, and we also had Chuck Kennedy, who I know has done a lot of course design. Dan or Stork had mentioned moving into and making sure we kind of have exclusive areas, that we have our places to play disc golf, whether that's on private property or whether that's a section or a corner of a park. What is some of the developments that you've seen that you'd like to further in our sport? You know what I mean? Because when I talk about or think about one of the biggest trends we're seeing in our sport is going to private property. Most of Maine, almost every course in Maine is either private property and or pay to play. And that's, something that's very regional there. And I think pay to play is popping up more and more throughout the country, but a lot of those are on private property. Do you feel like that's a way we need to go, or is that just will that always be a certain percentage of the market, perhaps?
I think it pretty much has to be a certain percentage. I mean, we would like for every disc golf course to be exclusive, but it's not always feasible. Now, I think our getting into the disc golf ball golf course thing is another avenue that we're going to see more often, just because a lot of the golf courses are struggling and people are throwing farther. So, I mean, it's becoming more feasible to get on these bigger pieces of property where a lot of people before would have said, well, it's just throw long, and throw longer. But if it's done right, it can still be disc golf, just a more country club atmosphere. So, do I think that we have to have exclusivity? Not really, but it would be good if we got more of it.
Well, I heard a stat, I believe this is about a year old already. I heard for every one disc golf course that's going in, there's 2 golf courses that are closing. I mean, the rate in which we're losing golf courses, they're folding up for lots of different reasons. The sheer land, the cost of them, the decline in the activity in terms of people actually wanting to go. It takes a lot of time to play versus what we're doing. So I think we're going to continue to see that, and a lot of people are experiencing that. What do you think we need to do to grow the game itself in terms of participation? Is it the courses that will do it? Is it disc design? Is it branding or marketing? Is it community outreach from the PDGA? What do we need in order for the sport to continue to flourish the way it has been?
I think that with what you're doing and what we've done with all the different broadcasts, and YouTube videos and all of that, that in itself is an awareness that we didn't really have until the last decade or so. So, I mean, my whole goal since day one that I started playing was to introduce as many people as I could to the sport, thinking that because I loved it so much that if I could get them to do it one time, that I would have done my job and they would have liked it. So the fact that we're being seen by millions of people on all of these videos is the initial awareness. So at that point, we just have to nurture these newbies that are coming out that have no idea what they're doing and just step up and show somebody how to throw. So, you know, I mean, the internet is doing a big part of it, and we just have to step in and do the rest.
Step inside the smash box. I think we coined that somewhere. Anyway, we love broadcasting the tournaments. We're seeing things in both post-production. We're seeing live events. We're seeing an influx of Twitter and all those other tools and resources that we now have in social media. When you got involved with originally with Disc Golf Planet a number of years ago and doing a lot of the live broadcast, what were some of those things that made that so appealing and enticing to you? I know you and I worked together a few times, but what were some of those things that that you liked about being on there and doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, once again, it was the sharing the information, you know, I mean, sharing the knowledge of the sport. And when you're talking to someone who has been there and done that and knows what's going on and can relate that, then it's a whole different deal than just seeing somebody in a park throwing at a barbecue grill, you know, which is what we used to get all of the time, you know, and people actually did use them as that. So, you know, I think most of the people now at least know what it is now. So that's a big step in the right direction. Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard plenty of stories, and I've seen, you know, going out to a park and somebody literally has, you know, line the bottom of a basket with some aluminum foil, or has the charcoal out, or whatever, hanging chickens from the chains or whatever, because they think it's some kind of goofy grill or deer feeder or whatever it might be. We've seen a lot of different things. So our statistician, Zach, out on the board says there's 122 wins recorded on the website. I, of course, believe there's probably quite a few that weren't accounted for due to some paperwork yet. But you've won world championships. You've got plenty of titles. Is there anything, I know it's a huge question, but is there anything that really stands out? Any big win or big event or you know, fierce competitor that you were always battling with? Is there anything that really stands out from the competitive side for you?
Wow. I wish I could say there was just one, but there's been so many tournaments and battled against so many really good players over the years. I don't know that I could pick out one, unless it would be the one that I've used most recently, which would be winning the doubles in 2002 with Mike Young, and fortunately playing against Ken Climo and Barry Schultz, who were pretty much handed the trophy before we started, and Mike played really good and we ended up winning. So, I mean, when you beat Barry Schultz and Ken Climo at anything, even if it's tiddlywinks, you know, I mean, it was something to be proud of. So I'll pick that one.
And just so everyone at home knows, can you even keep track of them? How many world titles do you have in what divisions?
I have 9 singles world's titles and 20-something when you count the doubles and the skill shot and all those other titles. So it's been a great ride. I've been really lucky and enjoyed every minute of it.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to share, parting shot, before we let you go?
Just please keep doing what you're doing, and as long as everybody gets on the right page and starts helping people whenever they need it instead of just focusing on the round of golf, then this sport is going to really explode.
Awesome. All right, everyone. That is Dave Greenwell, PDGA number 962. Thanks for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck, buddy.
Thanks, Terry.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Grab that for you. Thank you very much, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Derek Robbins, is that what I heard? All right. If you could please, and then you'll be able to hear me a little better. Put this right there. All right. You've heard all the questions. This is going to be easy for you. Derek Robbins joining us, PDGA 5980.
That's correct.
Correct. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry.
Tell everyone, well, first of all, where are you from?
So I'm from Kenilworth in England, right in the middle of England, 100 miles from London.
And so what does it mean for you to come here? I've seen you over stateside numerous times. What does it mean for you to come here and partake of this weekend?
It's a great honour to be amongst all the fellow Hall of Famers, and also, of course, we've got all the top players in the world playing here as well. So, yeah, it was worth. I've come over really just for this trip, particularly. So it's a big deal for me.
And so I have to ask. We'll get to this right away too. How about your round of golf today? Let's start there. How did that go? How do you feel like it went?
What's the next question?
Okay, then we'll move right on. No, fair enough. So let's talk a little bit about your involvement. Of course, selfishly, I'll say I'm so much more familiar with what's taken place in the United States. The Midwest is where I've grew up, so I knew a lot of our, again, I've mentioned Duster Don Hoffman, for instance, our Hall of Famers and the people that have laid the groundwork in our area. But what's it been like for you, and how did you get involved with disc golf, and what is your scene and what have you been doing?
It all started for me. My first international tournament, my first tournament in the States was actually the World Overall Frisbee Championships back in '78. That's where I played my first round of disc golf. So I was in at the deep end. And I was one of several players from the UK as well as other Europeans went over there. And basically we went back to Europe and said, okay, well, this disc golf is definitely, it's a great event and it's definitely here to stay. We need to start playing this in Europe. So in the UK, in '79, we had our first UK championships, and things are developing similarly in other European countries around the late '70s.
And what was it specifically that got you hooked? Competition, friends, the outdoors? It's a lot of different reasons, but what was it that got you hooked?
It's all of those things. I mean, I got my first Frisbee when I was 12, coming to 13, and I got it right by the ocean, and I was just fascinated by the way this thing would sort of float in the air and tower, and so the flight of the disc was the first thing that captured it for me. But then I love being outdoors. I like playing competitions, and the social side is important. So all of those, they're all big factors.
So could you compare a little bit the competitive and the social side of playing here in the U.S. versus playing back at home? Any major differences?
Not really any major differences. I mean, tournaments vary in the States. You've got PDGA sanctioned ones and non-sanctioned ones, and it's the same in the UK. So I don't think there's any huge difference. I mean, the UK scene is getting bigger. It was relatively small, so it used to be that you go to a tournament and I'd almost be surprised if there was somebody I didn't recognise. But I'd have to say that in the last sort of probably 3 years or so in particular, that's changed. I go to tournaments now. There's lots of people I don't know, so it's a good sign. It shows that the sport's expanding.
Well, so seeing that growth, what do you feel like are some of the reasons for the success? We've talked a couple times about reaching 100,000 PDGA members, but over there in the UK, why do you think there has been that growth and that development?
I think all these things, they're always going to be kind of incremental, because you need some courses to get people playing, and you need them to bring their friends into it. I quite like to think that my own course, because I run a pay-to-play course called Quarry Park, and that's brought a lot of new people into the sport. But I'm not the only one. There are several other courses in the UK which are doing a good job of getting people through, and it helps not just in that area, but it means I get a lot of tourists coming to play, and it means when we set up a new course somewhere, there's more people in that area that know about it. Because I think if you go back 6 or 7 years, we put a course into some place that didn't have an infrastructure of players, and the thing would just kind of, unless you're really going to promote it, it'll just fall flat, because people look at I don't know what that thing is. Where the, you know, and if they did, you know, is there anywhere to get discs locally, and
Sure.
anybody to show them how to play, and anybody to organise things. So now we've got anywhere a disc golf course goes in the country, there'll be people nearer to it who are willing to sort of support it and make it grow.
So if someone plants the seed, there also needs to be someone to water it as well.
Yeah, it needs to. Yeah, you need a few ingredients there.
So what have you experienced whenever you, well, let me back up. How often do you come over here to the U.S. to play? Is it just some of the bigger events? And what is it that brings you over for any given competition?
I've been to 8 Worlds, but I don't go to that many of them. This is the problem of having my own course, is that, of course, the busiest time of year for me is the summer. The World Championships are on then, so I haven't been to many Worlds in the last sort of 10 years. USDGCs, I used to go to those when I could get the sort of national spot, because that's a better time of year, flights are cheaper.
Sure.
The weather's getting a little bit poor in England come October. So this event's great for me. You know, I'm not so busy back home, so I can take some time off, and the weather's nice, you know.
What do you think about the humidity here in Augusta, though?
Yeah, I could yeah, a little less humidity and actually a few less degrees as well would be nice.
If we're really getting to it.
Yeah.
Someone on the board had asked a question actually asking about you know, disc manufacturers and sponsors, and what's the scene like there? Is there an incentive for more innovation over there, because then you don't have to, I don't want to just say wait for the shipping, but I mean, you don't have to rely on what's taking place here in the U.S., or do you feel like there's any greater innovation or product development over there?
Well, we did have a UK manufacturer, sort of, I don't know how many, more than 10 years ago now, we had Discwing.
Discwing, that's, I was going to guess that, okay.
Yeah.
The quarter K.
Quarter K,
and the quarter K2.
Yeah.
I still have a whole box of both of them if you ever need any. I have those available.
I think I got a box as well.
Okay. All right, well maybe we'll trade them or something. You have the white ones or the red ones?
I got both.
Okay.
More red though.
So maybe there's one answer, but when it comes to the culture of the discs and the branding, what is that like for you in terms of what you're purchasing and what you're selling and what you're working with over there?
All the discs are all about, I mean, because, you know, shipping from Europe is pretty reasonable. Shipping from the States is fairly horrendous, you know, it's really expensive. But no, I stock Innova and they come from Finland. I stock Latitude and Dynamic discs, obviously they come from Sweden, and the freight is very reasonable on those. And you can get all, you know, there are different people. There's always a little niche, you know, there'll be some supplier who says, oh, well, there's this other brand. Okay, if I stock those, I'm the only one, so you can get them all. Okay,
so if somebody were to go over there and they forgot their bag, it wouldn't be too big of a problem to replace all their favorites.
It might depend where they are in the country.
Okay.
But yeah, there's always mail order, yeah.
So what year were you inducted into the Hall of Fame?
2004. I think it's right behind here somewhere.
And I'll admit, I have to say, tonight, for those who didn't realize it, I should have opened very early with the show. This is in fact the PDGA Hall of Fame wall that's behind me. I had to move, I apologize, Barry Schultz, I had to move your plaque somewhere so that we could plug in and actually be ready to go. But I'll call your name out. But yeah, we're looking at so many of the members. I see John Houck, Greg Hosfeld, Carlton Howard, Marty Hapner, Stancil Johnson, Crazy John.
Yeah, this is my year. Should be along here somewhere.
Jeff and Johnny Lissaman, I know, are right
is
here.
That there?
Michael Sullivan. Oh, there you are, right over there.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody is awarded one of these plaques. And then, I don't know, it's been going on for quite a few years, at least 15 or more, maybe even 20, that also then commemorative discs are made each year as well. And I have quite a those were, I guess we talked about that a little earlier in the show, that those were released usually at the World Championships when everyone was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then you could buy a commemorative disc to go along with it. But 2004 over in Iowa at the Combined Worlds is when you were inducted. And also in your class, do you recall who was with you in that?
I had Jeff and Johnny Lissaman
and
Marty Hapner.
Marty Hapner, okay, very nice. So coming over here, this is like a family reunion to you?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've been surprised about in coming to the International Disc Golf Center and partaking this weekend?
Well, it just seems to be bigger. Obviously, there's more plaques on the wall.
Yeah.
Like, I was last here, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, so
Okay.
it's been a while. So, yeah, the place is filling up. You need to extend here, I think.
I was going to say, exactly when this opened back around 2006, it seemed like there was so much room and obviously not as many things on the wall, and now the PDGA continues to expand with more and more employees and more initiatives and things going on constantly. We're very lucky to be here where we are. What do you see as the next stepping stone? We'll say over in the UK, we'll go there versus the US. We've got our own problems. What do you see as your next stepping stone for growth for disc golf overseas, over in Europe?
I think a lot of it is doing more of what we're doing now. Personally, I've gone now to working full time on my course. I used to have a regular job 3 days a week. Now I'm full time, so I'm looking to expand the course. I spent quite a lot of money on it this year, more than $50,000 improving the course. So I'm putting my money into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd like to see some return on that. And one thing I haven't done a lot of before is really sort of developmental side locally, so getting schools involved and doing coaching. So those are things that I'd like to move.
And are all those things that you're hoping to bring out to your course to be able to have classes and teach?
And in the local area, not just at my course, but to try and build it. One thing, I don't know, like 10 years ago, I wrote down things I'd like to do. You know, a few goals to aim at, and one of them was that we should have, you know, I mean, in the dream, it would be a world champion coming from my area or something like that. I'm thinking, well, unless I'm going out there and actually bringing in a load of youngsters and coaching them, you know, or somebody's doing that, it's probably not going to happen. So if I want to see that, I've got to put some effort in.
You're going to have to grow one of those locally, as you'd say. So give everyone a pitch or a plug for your course. Why should they come there? What is the course like? What could you expect, and could you compare it to anything else that we may be familiar with?
Okay, so my course, it's a fairly compact area. It's 15 acres. There's an 18-hole course. We've got a few different layouts, and we've got a short course as well. I think one of the unique things is I bought the land in 1994. It was virtually a blank canvas. There's a little bit of some slopes. There's a little bit of elevation in one or two places. We have the River Avon, if you've heard of Stratford-on-Avon. We're just 12 miles away from that. Okay. There's lots of good tourist sites. The Warwick Castle is nearby. But the course, I mean, I spent 1 year designing it, working out where I wanted all the tees, the baskets, where I wanted the trees, what sort of trees. Did I want trees that will grow wide or high or narrow? So I spent a year sorting that out and planted them. Obviously, it took quite a few years to come to fruition, but now, you know, it's a purpose-built course, you know, and it's all, you know, the design has worked out really well. It's a very technical course. It's pretty fair. It's not hugely long. There's no par fives, but it's a beautiful piece of land. It really is. There's some really nice views. Like I say, you've got a river, a stream. We've made a few funky features. So we got we call the nipple, so we have a little raised green, and we've also now got the sort of, I don't know what we call it really, like maybe an exclamation mark. There's a long, thin green which is just created for the 18th hole. This is due to Elaine King sitting over there, because she came to my course, and I asked for feedback, and she said, "Well, it's all pretty good." Hole 18 though, it's a bit. Yeah, you know, it's just a straightforward hyzer. Okay. So so this year we did something about that. So we've got an elevated green. It's about 5 foot high. The platform is probably 25 foot long. So you can, and it's probably 6 or 7 foot wide. So you can land on it, but it's a fairly accurate shot to land on it. Otherwise, you're on the slope, you might roll away. So I think it's a good green. It's a good hole now.
So if anyone goes there and plays and gets upset about a rollaway on 18,
blame Elaine.
You blame Elaine. I think that makes perfect sense. I think that's exactly what we should do. Well, if you ever need help with someone to film a tournament there, or maybe come there and crash a drone, you could reach out, because I'm able to do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So how often do you host tournaments there, or leagues, or is there any regular play that takes place?
So we have the Quarry Park Open every year, and we generally have one other one-day tournament, and there's a monthly handicap the first weekend of the month, and we're just in the area starting a putting league now that just started last week. So yeah,
there's always something going on.
There's something going on. Yeah.
All right. Well, before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to say to the disc golf world or community out there?
I'd like to say hello to anybody listening from Europe in particular. So it's great to be here, and I shall be at the Drava Forester event in Croatia a week after I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Well, Derek, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks very much, Derek.
I'll take luck the rest of the weekend for you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Yep, go ahead and grab that, and I'll take that for you. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Uh-oh. I sense a troublemaker on deck. Someone blame Elaine? Come on in. Elaine King is going to join us. I think that might stick for a while.
Oh, man.
All right, I'm going to grab the top of your... And we're going to do that, and that should be good.
Okay.
All right, we're going to hope so. Elaine King, thank you for joining.
Hey.
I apologize. I don't know you. I feel like there's
an awkward question coming.
I'm trying to guess PDGA numbers. I see a lot of PDGA numbers because I used to run a lot of tournaments, so I'm very familiar with a lot of people in Wisconsin. Then, of course, your Duster Dons and your Barry Schultzes, and Tom Jenkins is transposed with Johnny McRae, so sometimes I'd put their numbers in at an event. I feel like there's a 3, a 9, a 4, and a 1. Maybe not in some
Half of that. 3090.
3090. Okay, well, enough of that silly game. So thank you for joining. And look at this. Also, how convenient.
In a shameless moment of self-promotion, here I am on the cover of Disc Golfer, and this is the first time I've had a cover to myself. There's one other time I've been on the cover with a few other people. Okay. So this is a really landmark event, and I'm thrilled to death.
And where was that shot taken?
That was shot at the Master Worlds this year in Michigan.
Okay. Well, very nice. What does that feel like to have? You said you've shared it. You've won how many world titles? Dozens. You can't keep track like Dave Greenwell.
I can keep track. So I've won 5 Open Women World titles, and this is my 2nd Master Women's title. Okay.
So you've got 7 world titles just in the singles competition, and then there's been doubles championships and other things.
Yeah, mixed doubles. I've had, I think, about 3 of them. So Kevin McCoy, Scott Stokely, Steve Valencia.
Wow. Okay, so lots of world titles. What does it feel like to have that cover entirely to yourself, as we see there's always this push for more women to be playing and for our women's membership numbers to continue to grow, and the women's only tournaments are continuing to grow. But what does that mean for you to be on the cover of that?
Wow, a lot of things, a lot of emotions, because it's been a long time coming. But I'm feeling wonderful, like it's a validation, I think, of women's disc golf, and I guess a validation of myself, of the contributions that I've made throughout the years are not a thing of the past and forgotten. It's still a little bit fresh and crisp. And, if I can continue to be a role model, I looked at Sylvia Vokes, and she was always out there playing, and, she'd dress in white. And it's Sylvia, it's raining. There's slopes of dirt, and she would come back in and she'd be pristine. And I'd have mud all over my face and be bedraggled. And I thought, man, I'd like to be just elegant like Sylvia. And Sylvia's still out there being elegant.
She is. I've seen her and her husband, Dr. Rick, this weekend, and taking it in, always with a smile on their face. always ready to give a hug and enjoying the Frisbee culture, the Frisbee family that we talk so much about. You and your husband have traveled extensively around the world. Now you've lived in a couple of different places that you've called home and then golfed in those areas. What is it that you're seeing around the country? I know that's a pretty broad stroke to paint, but what are you seeing around the country for our development and our growth in the sport?
Well, I think it's gotten to the point where growth is just organic. There are so many people now who are PDGA members, who are casual disc golfers, and we've got people, not just the counterculture movement as it was in the beginning, people who like doing something a little bit unique. It's a mainstream sport in many areas. And so now we're getting the growth because we have so many members who have the skills and organization to put in a disc golf course, to go to their city council, to get some programs for children, to get some programs for youth, to get some after school activities, leagues galore, just leagues and leagues and leagues. I think it's a great time right now, and we're starting to see this small explosion. We'll know it's exploded only after it happens, but we're starting to see growth that's more exponential, I think, than linear.
Well, when I think about the growth, and I know, again, I was a latecomer in the mid-90s, but I was very young, and I always thought, oh, any day this is going to blow up. Oh, we're going to be on TV. We're going to be on, whether it's ESPN or whatever. And it feels like some of those things, I'll say they don't matter. I mean, we're seeing the growth that I think is important, this 12 or 15 or 17% annually, and our memberships and eclipsing 100,000, all of those other milestones. It's all gone in I feel like, the right direction, and it's been very constant. And,
fast growth can be bad. Look at any business, like a lot of the telecom businesses grew fast.
LuLaRoe, I mean, where are they now, right? LuLaRoe, I mean, no, I don't know. Anyway.
No, I was thinking Nortel in Canada, which was a big boom and bust. A lot of biotech stuff.
I was thinking more. Come on. Oh, okay, well, there's one guy. But yeah, you're saying a fast growth, I mean, you can quickly get swallowed.
Absolutely, or you end up not having the skills you need to handle that level of exposure. But with disc golf, the great thing about the constant, steady growth, which the same percentage is getting more and more and more every year, is we can actually manage it and handle it. And I think that's really important, not to let the sport get ahead of itself, because we're going to lose things when it becomes really big.
Anything in particular? I mean, again, I keep talking about that culture and the Frisbee family, and so many of us can all share the stories of you go to a tournament, and one of your favorite parts about it is seeing so many people you know, because sometimes you see these people 10 or 15 or 20 times throughout a year on any given week or weekend. What do you think we should be worried about when you talk about that growth?
Well, I can give you one example. I think it was 15 years ago, so this is way in the past. I was going to a tournament down in Huntsville, Alabama, and a couple of my friends were going. We all shared a room. And one of my friends, Sheila Jackson, said, Elaine, I play tennis. And she said, I could not in my wildest dreams imagine rooming with my tennis competitors. Oh. Like that's unthinkable. Like, you don't like your tennis competitors, you stay away from them. They're the enemy. And yet here I am, and we're rooming together, we're laughing together, and we're fast friends. And we're going to lose that when we get really big money. It will be rare. And you can think of other professional sports where they talk about, oh, these two athletes are great friends, like it's this amazing thing. Because in high money sports, it is an unusual thing if athletes are friends. So we're going to lose that. We're going to lose these amazing friendships we have.
Well, one of the things that we talked about, and I mentioned it a little earlier, is we still have a male dominance in terms of just sheer numbers. And I've said for 40 years, us not so smart guys haven't figured out how to get more women to play. So I think we need to rely on the women themselves, like you. What is that? Is there a magic formula that we just haven't hit yet in getting more women out and introduced and then get them to stick with the sport?
I think the way we've gone about it in the past is trying to get the girlfriends and wives and sisters of male players is not selecting necessarily for the type of woman who would enjoy disc golf. So if you look at sports in general, if you look at what women do in sports, in the age brackets that we're in, you know, late teens to say 50, or the most of our members, the women are at home raising their kids, or if women participate in sports, they do aerobics. They go to the gym, they do a spin class, they do yoga, or they do a team sport. So women in general, and this is a generality, but women enjoy individual pursuits together or team sports. They don't select for competitive head-on sports as much as they do for the collaborative, teamy things. And so we're trying to take these women who probably have a propensity to have non-competitive physical activity and get them into some of the most intensely personal and lonely sports that, like, it's you for 3-4 hours on your own, dealing with your own bad shots and nobody to be there saying, it's okay.
Sure.
And just the way women are wired, a lot of women like that. So what we need to do is we need to select for a completely different demographic. We need to go to high schools and look at the women who are doing javelin and shot put and long jump and high jump and the sports where it is an individual pursuit of excellence, where you need focus over a long period of time. These high jumpers, you know, you just see that, oop, she jumped. And what you don't see is, okay, and then there was 45 minutes before she jumped again. So, you know, I think if we can try and get the women who have this individual and competitive nature and bring them into the sport, we'll have more luck. But how to do that, that's a whole big undertaking.
Well, and then the one follow-up I'll say to, or ask to that is there a magic number? Should we be concerned with any given percentage? We talk whether it's 4 or 5 or 7%, somewhere in that neighborhood is where we're at, where we very much have been at for quite a few years. Is 13% the magic number, 28%, 51%? Should we ever be concerned about, I mean, we always want to grow it, and I know there can't be an end goal, but is there a magic percentage where we maybe will say, okay, well, now we don't have to worry about it as much?
I think we should be focusing on women's participation, not women's competition.
Okay. Fair enough. And women, is it fair to say the women's only events are a great step in all of this direction because of the camaraderie and because of the we'll say the openness and the friendliness at maybe some people's, some women's very first event? Is that a good place to start, or at least to have it offered?
It's a wonderful place to start. You know, your local league is the best place to start because it's a nurturing atmosphere. But the women's only events, most of them are run such that there's a nice players pack, there's low cost entry, there's a lot of meals provided for, so if a woman can get there, she doesn't have too many things to worry about, and the atmosphere is a little bit different. And so especially for amateur divisions, if there's more focus on participation rather than competition, I think that will make more women feel more comfortable about the idea of going to a tournament, which can be a scary thought.
So switching gears a little bit, let's talk about how your professional career, which you can explain to everyone, how your professional career has then, how that relates to what you do in disc golf, or maybe how you pursue your disc golf weekends, and even the time management that you have and what you used to be doing, and how it's transitioned to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I've always worked full-time while I've been pursuing disc golf. Well, at first I was still going to graduate school, and then I was always working. So, you know, disc golf, it was choices every year about where I was going to spend my precious vacation days. And this year I made a decision early in the year that I was going to leave my full-time job and pursue consultancy. And there's a number of reasons I wanted to do that, but certainly I wanted a better balance in my life where...
More disc golf.
More disc golf, and, you know, more disc golf support things, so allow me to put more time in the Disc Golf Foundation, which is up and running really well with a new board. And just lately I've been asked to be on the PDGA board, and I seem to have gotten myself into all kinds of committees and things, which I'm loving. You know, now I'm starting to worry that I'm not having enough time to do my pharmaceutical quality consulting. But I've been able to play more this year, especially as I was making that break and having just a little bit of time to myself before I got too much in the consultancy. And so I've been able to travel a little bit more this year. And
do you find, has anything changed, whether it was from 2 years ago or 10 years ago or even 20 years ago? How has the tournament scene changed for you?
Well, I gotta say that the big tournaments are, on the whole, much more smoothly run, professionally run, higher standards, more money, more amenities. So I've been very impressed at the events that I've gone to that have been the majors. They're not perfect, and we'll never have a perfect event because everything can always be better, but I think that we are really hitting a much higher level of standards and professionalism than was available 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was certain tournaments had the excellence, and a lot of tournaments were maybe still working out the kinks.
If there was any one thing you could wave a magic wand over and address or fix or counteract right away, is there anything glaring to you that jumps out that within the sport, and that's not just a tournament scene maybe, but is there any one thing where you're like, I just really wish this would be squashed or fixed or addressed? Is there anything out there?
Yeah, it's probably something a little boring to many people's taste, but I think we need to have standards such that when you go to a tournament at a certain level, you really know what to expect. And we've got a lot more standardization and minimum standards that can be adhered to and will be adhered to. So when you go to an A-tier, when you go to an N tier, or even a B tier, you kind of know what you're going to get and you won't be disappointed.
Okay. And we've seen that there are standards, but like you said, there's a wide range of what you may get on any given day or weekend, and that goes to our tournament directors, that goes to, you know, parks, sometimes within their control, sometimes not, but I think you're saying you'd like to see that dialed in a little bit more.
I would be, and you know, I'm mindful of the fact that it's overwhelmingly volunteers who are doing this from the precious time that they are not working or with their family, and you know, that makes it tough to get everything really perfect.
So, as I've asked so many others, where exactly did you acquire the PDGA membership?
I think it was a Toronto Island disc golf tournament that we joined up, my husband and I, and so we got consecutive numbers 3089 and 3090.
Okay. Was that a requirement to play in the tournament? Was it of a certain level at that time, or it was just something you realized, oh, there's a pretty big event coming here, and I really need to...
Well, I mean, back then, and you have to remember way back when in the dark ages where there was no internet, you didn't know when tournaments were.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
It was a way to get information. So we wanted to join the PDGA, so we get the newsletter, which was a few pieces of paper back then, which had a tournament listing coming up, and so we could see what was happening and where things were going on.
Awesome. Anything you'd like to share with the world before I let you go?
Yes, so as I am now on the PDGA Board of Directors, I really want to hear from people about what they want to see from the PDGA, where they want to see it grow, what you want more of, what you want less of, because I think we're at a really important time right now to set our strategic direction. And there's so many ways we could go into. We could go into focusing on tournaments, we could go into focusing on youth and education, we could focus on more participation, we could focus on more media. What do people want to see?
Okay. Well, good luck with all your endeavors. Somehow, I thought you were going to have more time, and now it seems like you've painted yourself into a corner with less time, but it's hopefully everything that you're going to continue to enjoy and thrive in.
It's all good.
It's all good. All right. This is Elaine King. We're going to be back tomorrow night. I think we've had a lot of amazing guests. We're going to pick this back up tomorrow night. We'll be able to then talk with our 3 newest inductees into the Hall of Fame. And dare I ask, do you have a story? And there might be one in the room, but do you have a story about any of the 3 that are being inducted?
Oh my gosh,
that we can leave people with? So tomorrow, I may even ask them about the story or see if they have the same recollection that you do. Any really down and dirty stories?
You know, like I've been asked about what stories I have to tell about deaths. And, you know, I wish you would have done things that were more wild and crazy, because I'd like to have some amazing stories to say. And all my stories where I think about deaths, it's just really kind of dumb. I remember there was one time at the Vibram Open when she was having allergies or something, and she was trying to get a lot of toilet paper from the bathroom, and it was kind of like falling all over the place, and it was kind of muddy, and she was trying to save it, and that doesn't make a great story. I'm sorry, that was kind of anticlimactic.
Figuratively, she's very much kept her nose clean throughout all these years, so she doesn't have too much dirt to dig up on her. But maybe by tomorrow night, again, we'll be welcoming our 3 newest Hall of Fame members. I'll be able to talk with all of them, and we'll probably have more Hall of Fame members that we can catch up with as well. I've had a lot of fun tonight, learned quite a few new things myself. And it's been a lot of fun having you guys. So I think we can close out a show. That's crazy, under like a couple hours.
It's not
even.
midnight.
I know. What are we doing? Well, this is Elaine King. I've been Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. I hope you guys have enjoyed our interviews with all of our Hall of Fame members that we've talked to tonight. Some great stories and background. We look forward to, again, doing it tomorrow night. Stay tuned to the same channel. We'll bring it to you. We'll have the actual Hall of Fame induction ceremony, so you'll be able to watch that live, a very important moment for so many of our sport's greatest ambassadors, and we'll see you then. All right, I'm the Disc Golf Guy, and we'll catch you guys next time right here from the PDGA International Disc Golf Center.